Good morning, my friends. How are you? I'm adjusting the light a little bit to make sure that you're getting a good picture on your screen, so don't mind me. I'm just adjusting the intensity of the light, and I hope you can see me clearly and also hear me. So, my last dialogue with you was about 12 steps, a 12-step program on how to awaken to reality. I'm going to continue where we left off, but if you have time and you did not watch the conversation on the 12-step program to reality, then do look at it, because that is a starting point. And so today, let's explore that a little deeply on what is reality. What is reality? What is the truth about reality? We're not the first people to engage in this query or this exploration. We're all here together right now exploring this topic, but this topic has been there ever since humans started to reflect on their existence and also on the nature of existence. So we know that as far as we can tell, we are the only species that asks ourselves, who am I? What is it that wants to know, who am I, or what am I? What is the nature of our existence? What is God? Is there such a thing? If we are a speck of dust in a mindless void in the junkyard of infinity, amongst 2 trillion galaxies, 700 sextillion stars, uncountable trillions of planets, is there any meaning or relevance to our existence? What is the nature of death? What happens to us after we die? If these questions interest you, then please say yes, and I will explore reality with you. Some people are saying that the volume is low. I've turned it up to max. So let me know if you can see me and hear me clearly, and if you would like to continue on this topic. The truth about reality. What is it? Are you interested in this topic? And if you are, then say yes. If you are, say yes and invite friends to join us. And of course, please criticize, condemn, or just give feedback, positive or negative. It expands our conversation. Today's topic was triggered by this cover story in The New Scientist. What is reality? The more we look at it, the less real it seems. What is reality? The more we look at it, the less real it seems. Okay, so now let me just read some very interesting sentences around this topic. Okay? Let me read. Obviously, I can't read the whole article, but I'll read bits and pieces selectively. And then we'll go from there, okay, if that works for you. I'm reading from the February 1 through 7th issue of the New Scientist, special issue, What is Reality? The more we look at it, the less real it seems. Okay, so let me read selective portions. If anything, the mystery of reality has only deepened. We are now at a point where it is equally credible to claim that reality is entirely dependent on subjective experience, or entirely independent of it. Reality has never felt so unreal. Okay, if reality is independent of our subjective experience and we believe that, then that philosophy is called naive realism. Naive realism simply has two principles. Number one, the physical world exists exactly as perceived by the five human senses, not by the senses of other species. And number two, the physical world, as experienced by the five human senses, would still exist if there were no humans with those five human senses to experience it. Obviously, that is a proposition which is based on faith or belief and the assumption that the world is physical. This philosophy is called physicalism or naive realism. Both those tenets, by the way, the physical world exists is exactly as perceived by the five human senses, and that it would continue to exist even if there were no human beings to perceive through the five human senses. Both those statements are basic tenets of physicalism or naive realism, and they don't explain, of course, how we know what we know, and if what we know and perceive is in fact the truth. Let me go on from the New Scientist again. Nobel Prize winning physicist Richard Feynman once described the quest to understand reality as a bit like watching a game of chess without knowing the rules. By observing the game, we slowly get grips with what the pieces are and how they are allowed to move and interact. By roughly the middle of the 20th century, physicists thought that they had at least identified the fundamental particles of reality. Fundamentals of reality, particles and quantum fields. The particles made up the matter and energy around us, and the quantum fields were responsible for forces like electromagnetism, which governed how they interact. The rules of the game were set by quantum theory. And so the standard model of physics has broadly stood the test of time. The discovery of its final missing piece, the Higgs boson, was confirmation that it is at least on the right track. But the standard model is nowhere near a complete answer. It leaves out many things that physicists are pretty sure are real, even if they have yet to be characterized, including dark matter and dark energy. And it can't account for the force that substantially defines our experience of reality, which is gravity. Despite high hopes that the Large Hadron Collider would follow the discovery of the Higgs with at least some hints about a more complete theory, none has been coming. The problem is that quantum theory and general relativity don't play by the same rules. Quantum theory is predicated on reality existing in tiny, indivisible chunks, relativity on it being smooth and continuous. This means we can't understand situations where both gravity and quantum theory are at play, such as in black holes, the Big Bang, or tiny particles in gravitational fields. And then there are other physicists that have pioneered something called loop quantum gravity, which holds that space-time isn't smooth but made up of tiny loops. Okay, so there's a lot more here that I don't think we need to go into, except here and there. The stronger the entanglement is at most fundamental levels, it suggests that space-time emerges from quantum mechanics, and in that case, quantum theory is the more fundamental description of reality and should be where we find answers to the questions of what exists and what it does. Okay, then the article talks about entropy, the arrow of time. A scrambled egg cannot be unscrambled, and the energy cannot be created or destroyed. and yet entropy is irreversible except when it becomes life. Okay, and then there's a whole section here which says, is reality the same everywhere? And obviously it isn't. But here the author goes into something very interesting, which I have addressed, which is, can we actually perceive reality? And the author says, I don't know about you, but I feel that I have a perfectly good perception of reality inside my head. Is a vivid depiction of the world around me, replete with sounds, smells, color, and objects. So it is rather unsettling to discover this might be all a fabrication. Some researchers even contend that the live stream movie in my head bears no resemblance to whatever reality is. In some senses, it is obvious that subjective experience isn't the whole story. Humans, unlike bees, don't normally see ultraviolet light. We can't sense Earth's magnetic field, unlike turtles, worms, and wolves. We are deaf to high and low-pitched sounds that other animals can hear, and have a relatively weak sense of smell. So, in fact, most of what you see is an illusion. Our eyes aren't all-seeing, but capture fleeting glimpses of the outside world between rapid movements called saccades, S-A-C-C-A-D-E-S. During these, we are effectively blind because the brain doesn't process the information that comes in when they happen. If you doubt this, stare at your own eyes into a mirror, then rapidly flick your gaze from one side to the other and back again. And just ask yourself, did your eyes even move? The author goes on to say that we perceive the world in relation to what we already believe. Experiences are not caused by physical reality, but composite. Very important. Experiences are not caused by physical reality, but composite. So you construct physical reality, or what we call the experience of physical reality. And then basically the article ends by saying we have no idea what reality is. Is it physical? Is it consciousness? Is it an interpretation of perceptual activity, etc., etc.? And furthermore, it's very clear that brain science, cognitive science, or any science cannot give us a clue about how we experience either what we call the physical world as a perceptual activity, or what we call the mental world as thoughts, feelings, emotions, images. What the heck is going on? As Sir Arthur Eddington, a great scientist of the last century, said in one of his most commonly quoted and popular quotes, sentences, is something unknown is doing we don't know what. Something unknown is knowing we don't know what. Are particles and force fields and atoms and probability waves, are they real entities, or did we make them up? Just like we made up things like latitude, longitude, Greenwich Mean Time, nation states, money, Wall Street, colonialism, kings, queens, democracy. These are human ideas that are now part of our constructed reality. And that includes everything from the Empire State Building to Boeing airplanes to computers to the internet to everything that is our everyday reality. That are our everyday reality. It's a constructed reality. So where does this construction happen? Where is this happening? How are humans constructing the human universe? And so humans have sought to give meaning to experiences ever since they learned to represent experience through language. First there was linguistic language, written language, and of course then there are other languages like mathematics, which is a human invention. And then there's music, which is a language that in many ways has notations, a language, but it's also symbolically represents experiences. The experience basically are sound that evoke all kinds of emotions. So music, mathematics, logic, rationality, empirical facts, models, assumptions all ultimately go into the recipe of our experience of reality. All of them go into the making of our experience of everyday reality. What can we say for sure about reality? Is there anything we can say for sure about reality? Yes. I think we can make two statements that would be difficult to argue. The first statement is there is existence. What do we mean by that? By that we mean something exists. We don't know the nature of it, but there is existence. There is existence. Something exists. I, at least, think I exist. I think you exist. And we look around us and say, all this exists. So I think we can agree that there is existence. And then I think we can also agree that there is awareness of existence. And maybe the two are synonymous. So in fact, in the great tradition of Vedanta, Kashmir Shaivism, and all the non-dual traditions of the world, there is awareness of existence. And there is existence. And they're both synonymous. Awareness being the knowing element in every experience. So we know that we know. And ever since we have had reflective thought, we have actually created models of reality, including mythology, religion, philosophy, theology, science. And these models of reality are basically explanations of existence and awareness of existence. Okay. And what I'm saying to you today is none of these models can explain reality. None of these models can explain either existence or awareness of existence. And that all these models are systems of thought without actually asking what is thought and where does it come from. So what is thought? What is the source of thought? Where does it come from? Where is the thought before you have it? And where does it go after you've experienced it? If I ask you to think of the thought mother, or if I asked you to think of the thought money, or I asked you to think of the thought love or anger, it immediately triggers an experience. And that experience is first a mental experience, the thought, and then maybe an image, then maybe an emotion, and that then actually shapes our view of the world, which we call perception. So, in fact, we are constructing reality with every thought. The thought is the embodiment of entangled experiences in the form of sensations, sense perceptions, images, feelings, and thoughts. And in fact, this is happening in every moment as consciousness or awareness is modifying itself as qualia. So what are qualia? Qualia are qualities of experience, like textures, like solidity, like softness, like sensation, like color, like form, like shape, like sound, like innumerable flavors, like innumerable fragrances, and that are very specific for different species, as I just read from the New Scientist. Different species have different qualia experiences. So what's happening is consciousness is knowing experience by modifying itself into qualia. The qualia are a messy, gooey collection of sensations, colors, shapes, forms, sounds, textures, flavors, fragrances, and then interpretations of them, human interpretations, including interpretations like force fields and atoms and particles and probability waves and Hilbert space and the curvature of space-time and gravity. These are names given by human beings to modes of knowing and experience in human beings. Experiments and modes of observation, and if we agree on our subjective experience, we give it a name: Higgs boson, a quark, a gluon. No, never mind that nobody has seen quarks and gluons. They are hypothetical constructs based on mathematical metaphysics, basically. And most theoretical physicists are actually not talking about physics, but metaphysics. Neither string theory, nor eternal inflation, nor cosmic inflation, nor Big Bang, nor what's happening across the event horizon, nor what a singularity is. None of this can be perceptually actually understood because even all of this is a very specific narrow band of perceptual activity interpreted by the human mind as force fields and singularities and black holes and particles, etc. So we see that all these theories are constructed in or conceived in human consciousness. All these experiments are designed in human consciousness. All the observations are made in human consciousness. All the labels are given. Boson. Boson is named after an Indian physicist called Bose. And so it's a name for particles like quarks that I said can't be seen. Okay, boson. Higgs boson. Higgs is the name of another theoretical physicist. So Higgs and boson now come together, two names of physicists, to name a particle that has never been seen but only hypothesized. And even when it was seen after multi-billion-dollar, hundreds of billions of dollars of experiments, what was seen was a ghost. And this ghost gives rise to all the mass in the universe. How fanciful is that? Ramanan Dixit says he's Jagdish Chandra Bose. Yeah, Jagdish Chandra Bose is what the boson is named after. And then Higgs is the Irish theoretical physicist mathematician. You put these names together and you come up with the idea of a ghost-like particle that no one has ever seen, but its ghost has been tracked based on a precise method of questioning and experimentation. And now this ghost is used to explain all the mass in the universe, everything that we call mass. And so this is the theoretical construct of reality. But actually none of the current theories of reality theoretical physics, including multiverses, many worlds theories, string theory, eternal inflation, cosmic inflation. None of these are subject to experimentation, falsification, or validation. So they're not actually, some people would say it goes all the way to being pseudoscience. Pseudoscience simply means giving scientific explanations to things that we cannot actually observe, validate, or falsify. So, thin line between what we call science and pseudoscience, and also scientism and science. Science by itself is a methodology that predicts the outcomes of experiments. Scientism is an ideology that says the scientific method can give us explanation for every experience, when in fact the scientific method cannot give us an explanation for any experience, mental, perceptual, or the interpretation of it, because we do not even know what the source of thought is. Okay, and without knowing the source of thought, we have no idea of the source of perception or images or feelings or experience. So what is reality? Reality is perhaps just consciousness bubbling with its modifications as qualia. And the rest is a human story. The universe is a human story. There's no such thing. The body-mind is a human story. There's no such thing. Physical objects are human stories. There are no such things. All there is awareness bubbling as qualia, modifying itself as qualia, and then human awareness or human consciousness, the human mind, interpreting that as the physical body, the changing physical body, or the changing experience of the physical body and the changing experience of the physical world. What is beyond the experience? What is awareness before it bubbles as qualia? It is just awareness of existence and the knowing of existence. That is the only truth. Existence and the knowing of existence. The rest is a human story, useful human story, so we can have this conversation and play in the Leela and the Maya, which we have collectively constructed. I go back to Yog Vashisht. The great yogi says, infinite worlds come and go in the vast expanse of consciousness, like motes of dust dancing in a beam of light, shining through a hole in the roof of my room. Otherwise, total darkness, a beam of light, motes of dust, coming and going. These are infinite universes in the vast expanse of consciousness. Frequency domains of consciousness with knowers, modes of knowing, and things known. Observers, modes of observation, and forms observed, all within me. The me not being a body-mind, but the me being the awareness in which the body-mind world is a unified, changing experience, giving a story that we have been telling ourselves. What's our story? To be human is to have a story, and then to embed yourself in that story and interpret it is actually what we call everyday reality, not realizing we made it up. We made up everything that we call real. But here's what the great teachers of reality would tell us. If you can see it, touch it, taste it, smell it, if you can conceptualize it, if you can imagine it, if you can think about it, then it's not real. What is real cannot be conceptualized, but without it, there is no possibility of conceptualization. What is it that conceptualizes itself? that which cannot be seen, but without which there is no seeing, that which we cannot be perceived, but without which there is no perception, that which cannot be imagined, but without which there is no imagination, that which cannot be thought of, but without which there is no thinking, that which is not conceptualizable and perceivable is fundamental reality. Everything else is a story. What's your story? What's your backstory? What's your current story? What is the future story that you want to embark on as an experience? Very carefully and selectively choose your qualia experiences. Qualia, qualities of awareness. And then see how you are interpreting them. And then once you interpret them, see what is the story you're creating. And then see how you've embedded yourself in that story. And then recognize that you are the creator of the experience of the universe. Otherwise, there is no universe. The universe is qualities of awareness. Awareness knows itself as experience. The experience are qualia. The interpretation of qualia is the physical body, the changing experience of the physical body, and the changing experience of the physical world. And in reality, there is no such thing, only the unmanifest, non-observable, non-perceptual, non-conceivable, infinite being that you are. Tattvamasi. I am that, you are that, all this is that, that's all there is. Welcome to the truth about reality. I'm thinking of doing a 1-week course on how to wake up to this reality. And then, I'll do it live, and then maybe what we can do is create a digital, workshop, masterclass around waking up to reality. The 12-step program that I mentioned, but we can go a little deeper, each step in great detail. If you like the idea, let me know. Okay.